Hi class, this is Lolly and Debra, as you can see. And we're going to do something that we used to do when we had live classes, which was there would be a time in the middle of class where we'd take an extended break and the students would browse a bunch of books that we brought into class. And we'd have a handout uh, with the information about each of those books. So we're trying to figure out how to make this work for remote learners this year. And that's when we decided to do this video. So there is a handout, and I'll put the link below the video, the link to the handout below the video, which lists all of these books. And for those of you who are in the Cambridge area, you can go to the JCRL in the basement of Larson and take a look at them. The books will be in a bin in the JCRL for 1 week, from Tuesday morning to Monday evening every week, starting this week. So here we go. Let's get started. So the first book is quite a new one. It's called The Bear in My Family. And as you can see, it's actually told in the first person by this little boy about the bear who's in his family. And as it moves along, you start to realize that the bear is actually an older sibling, doing the kinds of things that older siblings do that are kind of bearish. And then by the end of the book, there's a very nice resolution. And both siblings, it turns out the bear was his big sister. And at the end, both siblings turn out to be bears whenever they want to be bears, and play together like bears, etc. So that is The Bear in My Family. The next one I've got is I forgot to say, author and illustrator, Maya Tatsukawa, for Bear in My Family. The next one is a couple of boys have the best week ever. And this is a book by Marla Frazee. And this is a perfect example of a picture book where the text says one thing. In this case, the text keeps telling about how much fun these boys are having at camp, for the best week ever. And then the pictures show you what's actually happening, which is they're being really bored at camp, but then finding other ways to have a lot of fun. And Marla Frazee's work is always just really charming and definitely a lot of fun. And so this is one of those picture books that, as is often the case when something is in the first person, it's got definitely an unreliable narrator, but by looking at the pictures, you can tell, in what way it's unreliable. And that's really the fun of it. The next one I've got is Crown, an Ode to the Fresh Cut by Derek Barnes, and illustrated by Gordon C. James. And both the author and the illustrator, this is their first book together, but they've become kind of a big deal in the children's book world. And basically, this is just a really kind of a really uplifting book. And it's a boy gets to walk down the street all on his own to go to the barber shop once a week. And it's about that whole experience of what it's like to be in the barbershop, the other people who are there, kind of adults, and that's really exciting. And they're all there to get, their fresh new haircuts. And then, it goes all the way through it until he's done and he just feels like $1 million. And this is one of those books that at the very end, it kind of plays around and the idea is you turn the book over on its side. All right, next up, Fred Stays With Me by Nancy Kofelt. This is a book that used to actually be, by Nancy Kofelt and illustrated by Tricia Tusa. This is a book that we used to have on the syllabus back in the day. And it's told by a boy. A girl. Not that really matters. And she's talking about her life. And she talks about how some days she's staying in her mother's house, some days she's staying at her father's house, but Fred, her dog, always stays with her. And it's just a really lovely take on, the big topic of, what is divorce like for kids. And another thing that's kind of interesting about this is that you never actually see any adults. The only figures in the illustrations are the girl narrator and the dog, and sometimes other kids. But the adults are always off screen. Kind of, if you know the Charlie Brown cartoons, the way anytime an adult talks, it's just this sort of because adults don't matter as much, kind of is the idea. What they say really doesn't matter. So that's one of the things I love about Fred Stays With Me. Another book we've got on the list is Green by Laura Vaccaro Seeger. Now, Laura Seeger is someone who has sort of become the queen of concept books. And we only mentioned this really briefly during the first class, but concept books are books that tell you about numbers or the alphabet or colors or before and after, these things that kids are sort of learning about in their earlier years. And but she always goes a little above and beyond. And so like her before and after book, it has little die cuts in the pages. So there's a little hint of what's about to happen, what you're about to see. And her book called Green does the same thing. She has a few of these books now. There's green, there's blue, there's a red. I think there's a yellow also. But anyway, it's every page is a different kind of green. And then there's this little die cut. I can show this to you. If you can see that is a hole cut in the page, which gives you a hint at what's coming up next. And different kind of green. So, anyway, so that is the book Green. A really kind of unusual concept book. The next one is Mariantha's Story. Now, this is one I cannot find my copy, so I'm just going to drop in a picture. But it is sort of like the way Mirror was. It's a book that you read from the front and then also from the back in a way. It's not fancily bound like Mirror, but when you pick the book up, you start with Mariantha's Story, painted words. And it's all about this girl named Mariantha who is new to the United States and she doesn't speak English yet. And so everything you see is sort of her, what she thinks people might be saying, but she finds that in art class, she can draw her experience and she can tell people about herself through her paintings. And then halfway through the book, suddenly you're seeing upside down pages. So when you flip the book over, you see, if you open it from the back, it's another whole book called Mariantha's Story, Spoken Memories. And that part of the book takes place when Mariantha has enough English to be able to tell about where she's from. So again, it's a really unusual book. Oh, it's by Aliki. I forgot. Aliki, who just goes by that one name, Aliki. The next one, I don't have a copy here, but Debra does. This is called Michael Rosen's Sad Book. And, I put this on the list because so much of the time we're looking at books that are so much fun and they just make you feel warm all over it. But, there can be picture books about stuff that's more serious as well. And Michael Rosen's Sad Book is, it's kind of an autobiographical book about what he went through after his son died. And it's just kind of beautifully done. Michael Rosen is a well-known English picture book creator. And this was kind of a departure for him. But I think it's really a lovely way to handle the idea of death and bereavement. Another way to show how that goes. And especially, when someone you love has died recently and you're a child, it's really hard to know what's okay to do in terms of your reaction. And there are plenty of books in which an animal died or something, and those tend to be brought out for kids at that time. But it's kind of nice to see that it's also okay to be sad. So that's Michael Rosen's Sad Book. Excuse me, I'm still in bed because I hurt all over. Anyway. Mr. Tiger Goes Wild is the next one. I just love this book so much. Here's an example of a book where the jacket does not match what's on the book cover. And there's a really good reason for that. It's also an example where the front end papers sort of give you a sense of what's happening at the beginning of the story, and the back end papers give you a sense of what's happening at the end. So I'm in danger of spending like 30 minutes talking about Mr. Tiger Goes Wild because I love it so much. But basically, Mr. Tiger lives in a town where all the animals are dressed and they walk upright, and they all seem to be very well behaved. And Mr. Tiger kind of gets tired of this. So he actually starts to lose his clothing one bit at a time, and until eventually, right in the very, here's an example. So not only does he experiment with taking off his clothes, but he also does this sort of mysterious thing. What is going on? Well, it turns out he's decided to stop walking on 2 feet and start walking on all 4s. So that leads to this, which leads to something even more shocking. Oh, where is it? I should have marked this. It's actually right in the center of the book. Someone has pointed out it's the centerfold. Eventually, he loses all of his clothes as well. Oh boy, that's risque. But it's just a beautiful book. And by the end of the book, the other animals in the town realize that maybe he has something there. So they all just do whatever they want. Some of them are clothed, some of them aren't. Some of them are on all 4s, some of them are on upright. Oh, sorry. A drink of water. I will edit that out. Oh, the next one is, Press Here by Hervé Toulet. This is a book from France originally, and Toulet is known as the Prince of Preschool in French, in France. And this is, God, it's really hard to describe this book. It's one that you kind of have to get your hands on, but because it is completely interactive while just being a book. So it's kind of, his way of turning a book into an iPad, but it's kind of magical. So there are instructions what to do. So you press that and then you turn the page. And each time you do that, you see what you're pressing the dot has done. It created a second dot. So it goes along like this. And it's beautifully done with these really sturdy pages and rounded corners. So it almost feels like a board book, but really it's for slightly older kids, basically preschool age. And honestly, you just got to try it out to experience it. So, This Is Not But My Hat by John Clausen. Now, Clausen's a Canadian writer illustrator. And he has a trilogy of hat books. And in each case, sort of like Marla Frazie's A Couple of Boys Have the Best Week Ever, in each of these books, there is a narrator who's telling you what they think is happening. In this case, it's this little fish, and he's wearing this little hat. And he starts telling you about how he just stole this hat from a great big fish. But he's so fast, he's going to go and hide, and the great big fish is never going to know where he is. So what actually happens, we see what's really happening. And we see that the big fish is actually completely aware of what's going on. And in every illustration, you take a good look at the eyes, and the eyes kind of tell you everything about what the characters is, their emotions. And the ending of this book is something that people have a lot of arguments about. Basically, maybe the big fish ends up eating the little fish, or maybe the big fish just ends up taking the hat away from the little fish. But yeah, it's kind of for you to decide. And now it is Debra's turn with several books.
Hey, thanks, Lolly. That was fun. Hi, friends. I am going to start with a book that really is an old classic. This is Time of Wonder by Robert McCloskey. Most of you are familiar with his other books like Make Way for Ducklings or Blueberries for Salad. Hopefully some of you know this book as well. The reason I chose this one to talk about, and we keep it on the list, is that it, in addition to having McCloskey's really gorgeous watercolor illustrations, it is told from a second person point of view. So he uses the word you. So you are in the story. And it really is a tale of these two sisters and their family who spend a summer or a vacation on an island in Penobscot Bay in Maine. And it is just, again, gloriously illustrated. There's a lot of lyrical language, a lot of really wonderful and idyllic scenes in the book. Even poetic in a sense. It's not poetry, but it has that feel to it. It is just a glorious work by McCloskey, and I think worthy of reading by anyone. It almost has dreamlike qualities to it at times. And was a Caldecott winner. It was published in 57, but won the Caldecott, I believe, in 1958.
Yeah.
And the next book is one that I really just discovered through Lolly, and that is Town is by the Sea. And this is Joanne Schwartz and Sydney Smith. And this one really struck me. Both the author and the illustrator are from Nova Scotia. And although in the story I don't think they specify that this is Nova Scotia. I'm pretty sure that is where it's intended to be. But this is the story of a little boy who lives in this town by the sea, and his father is a miner and has to go into the mines under the sea to do his work each day. And the illustrations show the boy, there's a lot of repetition. It shows the boy going about his daily activities, but he always comes back to this place in the book where there's an illustration, and it's always a 2-page spread of the men, his father included, working under the sea. And it's very dark, and you get this impression that this is clouding his thoughts because he returns to it time and time again. And although he goes off to play on the playground with his best friend, he continually comes back to this thought. And as you go through the book, you see that these pages with the black on them become heavier and heavier. And what he really comes to share at the end is that he expects that in his life, he too will become a miner, because all of the children, all of the people in that town go to work in the mines. And so it's this weight, I think, that's on his head about his potential work in the mine. And it's not a dark story. He has a loving family. He has a wonderful life there, but even the color palette, mostly grays, a lot of black, very, very muted palette, just shows this weight that I think sits in the child's mind. The next one is a completely different feel. Z is for Moose, and this is Kelly Bingham, and was illustrated by Paul Zielinski. And the colors could not be brighter and more cheerful. This is an alphabet book, but it is probably the funniest alphabet book that I have ever read. It starts off as you might imagine a typical alphabet book would start, but it takes place on a stage. So there's a dramatic flair to this. So the apple is going up the stairs onto the stage. A is for apple, simple enough. Goes on, C is for ball and C is for cat. But the moose thereafter starts to wreak havoc and wants to know, when it's his turn. M is for moose. But when M comes along and the moose does not take his place on the stage, but is supplanted by a mouse, really all hell breaks loose in some ways. There is a lot of drama and a lot of, a lot of chaos that follows. And it's quite hilarious. The moose is very upset and continues to wreak havoc page by page. There's a lot of sort of slapstick humor in this book, and I think children will find it hilariously funny. But in the end, and I won't tell you how it ends, there's a very sweet ending in which Moose is finally included, and the zebra, who is sort of the director of all of this, makes that happen for him. It's a really wonderfully funny and just beautifully illustrated book that I think all children will enjoy and laugh out loud at. So, and there's one last one that I'm going to share with you. No, I think Lolly, maybe you're going to share some more, and then I will come back to
Yeah, I
my,
think then
my book.
the next category is the wordless books.
Yes.
Yes,
So
and then
thanks, guys.
readers, and then that last little odd category. Yeah, so I've got the 3 wordless books here. Obviously, Mirror was a wordless book, and I know that a lot of your groups talked about, you know, some of the difficulties and rewards of using wordless books in a classroom setting. And I just want to share a few more with you. As it happens, I didn't realize this until we'd, you know, created this list, but 2 of these are Caldecott winners, and one of them is a Caldecott honor winner. And it's a lot of people sort of, when they're talking about what might get the Caldecott, wordless books always get a lot of attention because that tends to be, you know, it's sort of a tour de force for an illustrator to create a book that works completely with illustrations and not with text. So the first one I'm going to show you is A Ball for Daisy by Chris Roshka. And basically it's what you would think it is by looking at this. Daisy is a little dog, and Daisy has a red ball that she just adores. You know, we follow Daisy throughout her day, basically. And it kind of mixes up between full pages and these kind of panels of different shapes. And, you know, all the different things that happen to Daisy's ball until, oh my goodness, she's playing with another dog who pops the ball. What is going to happen next? But actually all is well. And by the end of the book, Daisy has a new special ball. You can see there she is on the couch with her blue ball. So a really sweet book. You know, maybe part of why I love this so much is because I love dogs. But you know, I still think it's a winner. And Chris Roshka, as an author illustrator, is a good person to know about. A lot of people know his book Yo Yes. That became a real classic. The next one is Jerry Pinkney's The Lion and the Mouse. And this is sort of unusual in that it's a wordless book and there are no words on the cover. Here's the back cover, also no words. But underneath the jacket, you can actually see, you know, it shows you what, you know, it's still no words for the title, Lion and Mouse, but you at least see the author illustrators. Here it is again. So The Lion and the Mouse. Oh, were you going to hold? No, I was.
I was, but that's okay, Lolly. You're doing a great job.
Oh, you were going to do this one. I'm so sorry. I just stole from Debra.
That's
well,
fine.
all right. How about this? I'll hold up a few things and you can talk about it some more. How's that? Here.
Well, I think the thing to say about it, and I know you would say this too, Lolly, is that it's the classic Aesop's fable, but Pinkney, with his extraordinary artwork, tells this without any text at all, except for very few animal sounds that he shows. So here he takes a classic tale that really is told in text predominantly and tells it without any, but for those simple sounds. And as Lolly's showing you, there are these amazing either single pages and some extraordinary 2-page spreads here where you really get a sense of the action and what is happening, and the arc of the story is so clear and so beautifully told without having a word on the page. So he really achieved something, I think, exceptional, and that was a Caldecott winner, as I recall.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, Deborah. I can't believe I did that.
No worries, Lolly.
Oh, man. So the last of the 3 wordless books is a book called The Red Book. And again, a wordless book with no text on the cover. It got a Caldecott honor book. This was a real kind of a sleeper hit. Barbara Lehman, the author, illustrator, was just sort of known for being an illustrator for hire for the most part. And oh man, this book is so hard to describe. But you know, like any wordless book, you're sort of following a plot just by looking at pictures. And the pictures are done, you know, the style is awfully simple and kind of cartoony. But because of that, you're really able to pick up the little details. And you can sort of see, like Sendak, she plays around with how big the art is and what the focus is. Basically, this is a book that actually the year I was on the Caldecott committee, this was one of our honor books. So one of the people who was on the committee with me, who was a YA librarian, and she was in a punk grunge band, that kind of thing. She actually got close to tears when she was talking about this book, because she said this is the kind of book that will change someone's life. And basically what happens in this book is a child finds a red book, and in opening that book and looking at the book, they see another child reading a red book. And it all becomes, oh man, how do you explain it? You know, by the end, the two children have kind of met each other through the book. And then at the very last part of the book is left on the ground again for someone else to find. And there it is. And there's actually sort of a sequel to this book, which was published a little later. But in an interesting way, it's both a sequel and a prequel, depending on how you want to look at it. Is that the end of our wordless book section? Yes, it is. Okay, so next we have some easy readers for you. And there aren't a whole lot of them on this list, but there are also very few easy readers out in the world compared to any other genre in children's books. They may, you know, a lot of people would say that they're actually the most difficult book to create. You know, partly because they need to seem so simple and easy. But, well, anyway, we'll be talking about more of this in class. What do we got? I'm doing the first two and then Deborah. I think that's right. Yes. So the Frog and Toad that will be in the bin is a different one. This is the one that I happen to have at home. The JCRL has a different. So the Frog and Toad books by Arnold Lobel are classics at this point. And as is often the case in easy readers, there are two characters with very different personalities. So Frog is the optimist, Toad is the pessimist. And, you know, they're really good friends. And again, this is an older book. It was done with color separations. So you can see it's printed in black and brown and green. So if you, oh, and also, you know, as an easy reader, you get a sense that it's not for the very, very earliest easy readers, but it's kind of for that age that's probably in between the Mo Willems, Elephant and Piggy books and a little bit younger than the Ling and Ting books. So my guess is that most of you have already heard about these, but we just wanted to make sure that you knew about them because they're important books to know about. The other one I want to show you is Little Rat Makes Music. This is one of a few books, easy readers, about Little Rat. It was actually illustrated by Molly Bang, who wrote Picture This that we're reading for this week, and the text is by her daughter, Monica. And in these books, Little Rat, so Little Rat lives in a world that's an animal world, but also sort of a world in which the animals are kind of easy stand-ins for people, in that, you know, here they are sitting in folding chairs and waiting for their turn at a music class, that kind of thing. But this is a book about Little Rat thinks it would be wonderful to learn how to play the violin because, you know, she just thinks it's the most beautiful sound ever. But what she discovers is that it's really hard to play, and she gets so discouraged. You know, once she's able to make a little bit more of a sound, there's this picture that I really want to show you. Oh, come on, pages. Oh, no. She ends up making sounds that look like that. So one of the things I love about this book is that Molly Bang has found a way to sort of depict music and how it sounds. And, you know, through the course of the book, Little Rat perseveres with, you know, with encouragement, as is often the case when children take up music. But by the end, she ends up playing a duet in a recital with a cat who's much more experienced. But as you can see, she's now able to make music that actually sounds like music. So And also, as an easy reader, this is a bit more advanced, which you can tell from the size of the type, and the leading, the space between the type. But I have a real soft spot for Little Rat as a character.
And
Your turn.
I am going to talk about Snail and Worm. This one is Snail and Worm All Day, which is the most recent of 3 books that were written by Tina and illustrated by Tina Kugler. And these are 3 stories about 2 friends. So just like Frog and Toad, Snail and Worm are best friends. I think what's especially funny about these books is that you don't think of a snail or a worm as being particularly adventurous and active and hilarious, but in fact, these 2 are. And what Kugler does well is, I mean, the illustrations are wonderful. They're simple, but quite funny. They're very expressive. All of the creatures have wonderful expression. She uses the eyes so well in particular. She uses different, these are very simple, as you can see, compared to the one Lolly just showed you. The pages on these books have very little text, and the text is in different colors, so you know exactly which character is speaking. So each character has its, his or her own text color. But you can also see that on the previous page, there was a 2-page spread. Then she's dividing this one into 3 horizontal panels. And then on the next page, the characters are in these circular windows. So she uses quite a range of illustrative, sort of devices to be able to convey the story, and some really wonderful colors as well. And so this is a series of 3 very, very short stories, all of which are very, very sweet, very humorous, and really easy for a young reader, I think, to navigate. So Lolly, I don't know if you have anything else to say about this series, but I think the characters are just priceless and precious. And so I think young children really love them. And like Frog and Toad, they have each their own personality, and that comes through in the stories.
Now, one thing that's interesting is, you hold up Snail and Worm, and I'll hold up Frog and Toad for a second. So you can see that Frog and Toad is your basic easy reader trim size. Snail and Worm All Day was, for the most part, it was published as a picture book rather than an easy reader. But this can happen, that there's a certain amount of fudging between genres. And what people discovered is that there's a lot there are a lot of aspects of Snail and Worm that actually work for beginning readers. And the illustrations are maybe not as obviously helping you decipher the text as they would be in a 100% easy reader, but the illustrations are so appealing, and it does work really well for very beginning readers. So now we're almost at the end of the list. I think I'm doing these last 4, right? Because this is actually, oh man, they're way over here. I have to stretch. I'm not good at stretching right now. Okay. So, we always get these questions about what is a picture book and what is another kind of illustrated book. And every year there are a few books that people argue about, what category should we put this in? Here's this book, The Arrival by Sean Tan. And this is a terrific book for, if you're going to use it with students, it would be definitely on the older, in the older elementary range. And it's used a lot, I would say, in middle schools. It's a wordless book, but it's really intricate. And it is a story about being a refugee. And the reason it makes sense that it's a wordless book, it's not just a gimmick or something. It's because this main character that you see on the cover, he comes to a country where he does not understand the language. And so I suppose it's not totally wordless in the sense that Tan does sort of depict people speaking this language, but he kind of makes up an alphabet that isn't really any other alphabet. And so this book takes quite a while to read, partly because the illustrations are so you can spend a long time looking at each one. And but it also has your basic picture book, drama of turning the page. I was on an award committee that gave awards for different categories. So there's picture book, there's nonfiction, and picture book, nonfiction, and poetry? No. Oh, novels, sorry. Fiction, picture book, and information books. And we knew we wanted this to get an award, but we couldn't figure out what category. This is a 3-person committee. 2 people said it was a picture book. I was one of those people. And the 3rd person said it should go under fiction because it takes as long to read and understand as a novel would. So we ended up just giving it a special award without a category. So there's an example of, disagreement about whether this is a picture book or not. Here's one by Ashley Bryan, who pretty much writes picture books, but also sometimes writes information books. And this is Freedom Over Me. And Bryan is someone who collects historical documents having to do with African Americans. And he's especially collected a number of slavery documents. So, for instance, these really haunting lists of property that include human beings as being listed as property. And so what he does in each of these, on every spread of this book, is he introduces a character, Stephen, and Bryan is also a poet, so he's written a poem about what it's like to be Stephen, and here he is with his price, and Stephen, age 32, $300. I mean, if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what. But you turn the page and there's a spread called Stephen Dreams. And so this is sort of what Stephen might have been if he hadn't been enslaved. So the thing about this book is some people are saying it's not a picture book because it's really a collection of 2 spreads together. So, and I would say that people are about half and half about whether this is officially a picture book or not a picture book. But what everyone pretty much agrees with is that it's an excellent book, no matter what category you put it in. And then finally, I have 2 books that really don't look like picture books. This is The Invention of Hugo Cabret, which right now it's really hard for me to hold it up because it's so heavy. This is by Brian Selznick. And there are a lot of spreads in this which are just pictures. Oops.
I can hold it up too, Lolly, if that
helps.
helps.
Thank you. Yes.
Open up to different spreads.
Yeah. So it goes back and forth between having just pictures and then just text. And again, this was an incredibly expensive book to produce. So good thing it got a lot of awards. I actually happened to buy this before there were any stickers on it. But so basically, it got a Caldecott as a picture book, which really surprised a lot of people. And, especially because there were whole spreads with no pictures. But the committee's argument for that was that they figured out ways in which it really did fit pretty much anyone's definition of what a picture book is. But again, a little controversial to call it a picture book. And then finally, in the last 20 years or so, graphic novels have become much more respectable than they used to be when people just called them comics. And here's an example. This One Summer is a book that is definitely for older kids, but it is a graphic novel. And it won a Prince Award, which is for books for adolescents, but it also got a Caldecott honor. And again, people really disagree about whether graphic novels for older kids could be called picture books. Because to some extent, they follow a lot of the rules of picture books, but instead of sort of it being page turn to page turn, it's panel to panel. So everyone kind of thinks that one of these days, someone will create an award that is specifically for comics or graphic novels. But so far that hasn't happened yet. So they end up getting put in a different category. So this was a long one, but I really enjoyed this. It's fun to get back in the book talk mode. And
Can I say
yeah,
one more thing
yeah,
about
absolutely.
one of the books? I forgot to say something about this book and why I think there was such a weight on the boy, and that is that his grandfather was a miner also, his father's father, and he died. And so I think that that's an important part of this book. And I think the reason the boy feels the weight is there's always that fear
Yeah.
that one could perish in the mine, and not that mining in and of itself is something that one wouldn't look forward to doing, but just the dangers that are inherent in it. So I really neglected to say that. And I think that's an important part of the story. So I just
Yeah,
wanted to throw that in.
So, what we hope is that all of you who can get to the JCRL can take a look at these books. But for those of you who can't, we've given you a little taste of them. You have the PDF that lists them, and in a lot of cases, you'll probably be able to find, YouTube videos of someone reading the book somewhere. So Deborah and I plan to do something like this for every week. We'll see if we can really get our act together to do that, but that's the plan. And I really apologize for how late everything's been this week. And as you can see, I'm really not on my feet yet. So it's been an interesting time, but I am definitely feeling better each day. So we will see you in the book groups on Monday and in class on Wednesday. So happy reading, everybody. Bye.
Bye.